What happens when the United States decides that a warning is no longer enough when Washington wants to erase a threat from the map entirely? Not just bruise it? Abu Musa, a forward military outpost under Iranian control, sitting like a loaded gun beside the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point through which a fifth of the world's oil must pass every single day. For decades, this narrow stretch of water has been the nervous system of the global economy, and whoever controls the islands guarding it holds a knife to the world's throat. But this time, the island is not merely guarded by 400 Revolutionary Guard troops standing watch over rusted artillery pieces left over from another era. Satellite intelligence has confirmed something far more dangerous. 1,200 elite IRGC fighters dug into reinforced concrete tunnels, a labyrinth of underground bunkers built to survive anything short of a direct nuclear strike, and most alarming of all, a state-of-the-art S-400 Triumf air defense network, operated not by Iranian technicians alone, but under the direct supervision of 50 senior Russian military advisors flown in under diplomatic cover. They believed this island was an unbreakable fortress. Geography stood on their side, narrow approaches, treacherous shoals, a coastline that funneled any attacker into predictable kill zones. The missile batteries stood on their side. 3 years of preparation, endless drills, tunnels reinforced meter by meter, all of it stood on their side. But none of them knew what was gathering in the darkness. 100 miles out at sea, beneath a moonless sky deliberately chosen for this night. This would not be a routine airstrike. This would not be a small special forces raid, slipping quietly onto a beach under cover of night, in and out before dawn. Tonight, the United States is unleashing the full might of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade. 8,000 Marines drawn from bases stretching from Camp Lejeune to Okinawa, quietly repositioned over the past 3 weeks under the cover of a routine training rotation, backed by the Supercarrier Strike Group of the U.S. Gerald R. Ford, the most advanced warship ever built by human hands, alongside cruisers, destroyers, and 2 nuclear attack submarines running silent beneath the waves. Stay with me, because over the next 4 hours, you are about to witness the true definition of overwhelming force the moment 8,000 Marines grind a fortress into dust, while the entire world holds its breath and watches. 2 a.m. Central Command Bunker, Abu Musa Island. Colonel Yuri Volkov, commander of the Russian advisory contingent, stares at the glowing radar display of the S-400 battery. The air in the bunker is thick with cigarette smoke, stale coffee, and quiet confidence. The screen is calm, steady green pulses sweep across a 250-mile radius, and nothing moves within it undetected. Volkov allows himself a small, satisfied smile. He has commanded air defense installations from Syria to Kaliningrad, and he has never once seen this system fail. Any American fighter jet foolish enough to take off within that radius will be locked, tracked, and obliterated before its pilot even glimpses the coastline. He has trained for this exact moment his entire career. He believes, with the certainty of a man who has never been proven wrong, that tonight will be another quiet demonstration of Russian engineering superiority, a lesson the Americans will carry home in body bags. Beside him, the IRGC field commander, a hardened veteran of the long shadow war against Israel and the Gulf states, walks the defensive trench lines, boots crunching over gravel and sand still warm from the day's heat. Heavy machine guns have already been loaded and locked. Field artillery pieces sit primed, their crews standing by, ready to unleash a curtain of fire on any landing craft foolish enough to approach the shore. Young conscripts, some barely out of their teens, grip their rifles a little too tightly and try not to let their hands shake. Every soldier on this island has rehearsed this exact scenario 100 times in drills. They believe they are ready. They believe they have thought of everything. They have been preparing for this day for 3 long years. 2:30 a.m. Air Operations Command Center, Super Sicario Us, Gerald R. Ford, absolute radio silence. Not a single voice crackles across the comm channels. Rows of officers sit hunched over glowing screens, headsets clamped tight, watching data streams instead of listening to voices. The order is not spoken aloud. It doesn't need to be. It travels instead through tightly encrypted data packets, flashing silently across secure terminals, invisible to any listening ear. Impossible to intercept, impossible to jam. 2 words appear on the command display, and every officer in the room understands exactly what they mean. Release the swarm. On the flight deck above, in near total darkness, deck crews in glowing chemical light vests move like ghosts between the aircraft, running final checks by touch and memory. Engines begin to spool up, one after another, a low building hum that will soon become a roar loud enough to shake the steel beneath their boots. 3am Volkov blinks. For a fraction of a second, he isn't sure what he's seeing. The S-400's radar screen flickers erratically, a stutter, a glitch, nothing more, surely before dissolving entirely into a wall of blinding white static. Electronic warfare. Somewhere overhead, EA-18 Grim Growlers have already blinded the entire air defense network beneath a towering curtain of high-intensity jamming, a wall of electromagnetic noise so dense that no radar on the island can see through it. Volkov slams his fist against the console. Nothing responds. He shouts orders at his technicians, but there is nothing left for them to do the system he trusted with his life. The system he staked his reputation on has gone completely dark in the span of a single heartbeat. At that exact moment, the black sky above the island is torn wide open. This is not a handful of scattered fighter jets making a token pass. This is the sky itself blotted out, smothered by a colossal, densely packed formation of 48 F-35C Lightnings and F-A-18 Super Hornets screaming in low and fast, engines roaring like the end of the world. On the ground, soldiers who a moment ago felt invincible now stumble out of their barracks in half-buttoned uniforms, staring upward in confusion and dawning horror. The steel rain begins. Dozens of 2,000-pound bunker-buster bombs scream downward with terrifying surgical precision, their guidance fins hissing faintly before impact. The S-400 radar station vaporizes in a single, blinding fireball, the shockwave rippling outward and flattening everything within 300 meters, windows shattering on buildings that still stand. The coastal anti-ship missile depot detonates in a chain reaction so violent it rattles windows on ships 15 miles offshore, secondary explosions cooking off for nearly a full minute afterward, lighting the night sky orange. The reinforced underground tunnel network is punched through and set ablaze from within, flames pouring out of ventilation shafts like the island itself is exhaling fire. Smoke curling upward in thick black columns visible from space. Soldiers who survive the first wave scramble for cover that no longer exists, radios shouting contradictory orders. Command structure dissolving into chaos within minutes. Years of construction, billions of dollars in military hardware, entire generations of strategic planning, erased, completely neutralized. In exactly 12 minutes, 4am the smoke from the airstrike has not even begun to clear when the deep, guttural roar of jet turbines starts rolling in from the ocean, growing louder with every passing second. A sound that seems to rise from the water itself, vibrating through the sand and up through the boots of every surviving defender. This is not a probing landing. This is not a cautious first wave testing the waters. This is a flood, a tidal wave of steel and fire. More than 20 massive LCAC hovercraft surge onto the beach simultaneously, engines screaming, spray flying 20 feet into the air behind them, disgorging dozens of M1A2 Abrams main battle tanks onto the sand in a matter of minutes. Behind them come 80 next-generation amphibious armored vehicles, churning straight through the surf and onto dry land without breaking stride, treads chewing through wet sand as easily as pavement. In moments, the entire coastline of Abu Musa vanishes beneath a solid, unbroken mass of Marines and armored vehicles so dense, so total, that there isn't a single gap left for resistance to take root. Inside one of the lead Abrams, a young gunner named Sergeant Daniels grips his controls, sweat running down his temple despite the cool night air, watching thermal silhouettes scatter across his screen. This is his first combat deployment. He had imagined this moment 100 times in training, and none of those imaginings prepared him for the sheer scale of what is unfolding around him, an entire coastline being remade in real time by American steel. The surviving IRGC fighters, who lived through the airstrike, try to fight back with mortars and RPGs. firing wildly from whatever cover remains, muzzle flashes stuttering weakly against the overwhelming tide. But they are no longer facing a conventional infantry unit. They are facing a moving wall that spits fire from 120mm cannons mounted on Abrams tanks, while overhead, O-1Z Viper attack helicopters rake every foxhole showing the faintest sign of movement. With relentless bursts of 20mm cannon fire, their rotor wash flattening the smoke drifting across the battlefield, Marines advance in disciplined fire teams, moving trench to trench with a speed and coordination that leaves what remains of the IRGC defense utterly outmatched. Radios crackle with clipped. Professional callouts, no panic, no hesitation, just the calm, practiced rhythm of a force that has trained for exactly this scenario for years. 8,000 American troops are not simply capturing this island. They are swallowing it whole. 6:30 a.m., 30 miles out, a Chinese Type 052D guided missile destroyer sits quietly in international waters, its sensors soaking in every detail of the battle, antennas straining to capture every scrap of electronic signature the American fleet is willing to leak. Beijing wants to see exactly how the American war machine performs in this new era of warfare, wants a front row seat, undetected and untouched, to carry lessons home for its own Pacific ambitions. But the United States has no intention of letting them enjoy the show as passive spectators. There is no warning radio call, no warning shots fired across the bow. Instead, every alarm system aboard the Chinese vessel screams to life at once, red lights flooding the bridge in chaotic unison. Officers lunging for consoles that are already flashing impossible numbers. The ship's own combat computer delivers a conclusion that turns the blood of every officer aboard to ice. They have just been locked onto simultaneously by the targeting radar of 15 F-35s circling overhead, invisible until this very second, and the sonar of 2 Virginia-class nuclear attack submarines that have silently surfaced directly beneath their hull, close enough that a single order could end everything in less than a minute. The unspoken message could not be clearer. One command, one button, and this destroyer becomes an artificial reef at the bottom of the Gulf. Another line in a history book nobody in Beijing wants to write. The Chinese destroyer wrenches into a full 180-degree turn and races away at flank speed, wake churning white behind it, retreating from the area as fast as its engines will carry it, its captain already drafting the report he dreads sending back to command. 8 a.m., the central hilltop of Abu Musa. The battle is over. Less than 4 hours have passed since the first bomb fell. Smoke still drifts low across the island, mixing with the pale light of dawn, the smell of scorched earth and seawater hanging over everything. 1,200 IRGC troops have been shattered, most killed in action, the rest surrendering where they stood, hands raised, weapons dropped in the dirt, faces streaked with soot and disbelief. Marines move methodically through the wreckage, securing what remains, treating wounded prisoners with the same clinical efficiency they applied to the assault itself. And the image that will define this entire operation, the one that will be replayed on every news channel across the globe by nightfall. 50 Russian military advisors, Colonel Yuri Volkov among them, his uniform torn and blackened, with soot emerging slowly from what remains of the underground bunker complex, hands clasped behind their heads, surrendering unconditionally beneath the gun barrels of American tanks. Volkov's expression is unreadable, somewhere between shock and disbelief, a man watching his entire understanding of modern warfare collapse in real time. The photograph of Russian soldiers kneeling before us Marines on Iranian soil is transmitted straight to the Pentagon within minutes, and from there it will travel faster than any of them can control. By mid-morning, the fallout begins to ripple outward across the world's capitals. In Tehran, emergency officials scramble to control a narrative that is already slipping away from them. State broadcasters cutting between defiant rhetoric and conspicuous silence about the fate of the island's garrison. In Moscow, the Defense Ministry issues a terse, carefully worded statement acknowledging an incident involving advisory personnel, language deliberately hollowed out to avoid the word that everyone watching already knows: defeat. In Beijing, the destroyer's retreat is quietly omitted from state media entirely. even as satellite trackers and open-source analysts across the world reconstruct its flight path within hours. At a hastily arranged press briefing in Washington, a Pentagon spokesperson stands before a wall of cameras and delivers a statement stripped of triumphalism but unmistakable in its meaning. The operation achieved its objectives. All strategic targets were neutralized, and American forces stand ready to defend freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz for as long as necessary. Reporters shout questions about escalation, about Russian casualties, about what comes next. Most go unanswered. The Strait of Hormuz has just lost its most dangerous fortress. Russia has lost face on a global stage it cannot afford to lose face on. Its claim to great power military relevance dented in a single humiliating morning. China has received a brutal, unmistakable warning it will not soon forget, a reminder that surveillance without consequence is a luxury of the past. And the United States? It has just proven, in the era of long-range missiles and cyber warfare, that the United States Marine Corps remains the undisputed master of the battlefield whenever strategic ground must be seized and held that no amount of concrete, no radar system, no imported expertise can substitute for what 8,000 Marines can do when unleashed all at once. Do you think underground bunkers and modern missile systems can actually stop a superpower? Or are they nothing more than expensive scrap metal, waiting for the day they get crushed into the sand? Let us know what you think in the comments below.